It stopped too soon. I want to hear more.
We're gonna freak out.
What? What?
We're going to freak out.
Why?
You said you
Because
wanted to
she's
hear
a
more.
freak, a super freak. Oh, so.
She's super
Three different-
freaky now.
3 different songs all in one.
Jeez. Okay, well.
So our Torah portion this week is Mishpatim. Mishpatim, what does that mean? Because it's crazy when you read Christian Bibles, whether it be King Jimmy, New American Standard, etc. Mishpatim is translated really 2 or 3 different ways as we go through all of the Torah. But we've got some very it's almost confusing at times, because we have the Devri, the words of God, and these words of God and what God told to Abraham back in Genesis, or what God told Abraham's sons is, Abraham listened to and he obeyed, he completed, he observed my statutes, my ordinances, my law. And within that we have the Hulk, the specific words of God, the law of God, or the commandments of God. But then we also have the statutes, the mishpatim. What's the difference between a hulk, a law, and a mishpatim, or the mishpatim, the ordinances or the statutes? But then there's even another word too, and it's just like, it gets really confusing. I thought there was just 10 commandments. Can't we keep it simple? Just
Did you say a Hulk?
Yeah, a hulk.
No. Oh, Hulk. I thought you said Hulk. Hulk
smash. Wrong thing. We're not talking about a big burly green
Hulk,
guy.
Hulk smash.
Hulk must have been a ranger.
It's a Hulk. The Hulkim are special things. Oddly enough, it's like, this is the Hulkim of the Torah, and it would be the ashes of the red heifer. Or this is the Hulkim of the Torah, and it would be the instructions on Yom Kippur. This is the Hulkim of the Torah, and it would be another thing. The Huk, the words of God, the specific words that all Torah are draped upon, are things that we really do not understand. Judaism says, you know what, there's no reason for me to really delve into it, because God said it, I'm just going to do it. There's no purpose for me to understand why. But the Mishpatim, a little bit different. We can understand why. We can see why. We can see the correlation. But what does the Mishpatim have to do with the 10 Commandments? Because our Torah portion starts out with a Vav. And, in other words, this is a continual conversation. This is a continual context. There's no break in the communication of God giving us the 10 Commandments and giving us the Mishpatim. They're all connected.
Okay, so the Hulk is a given law, and we do it just because the Most High, blessed be He, says so. Mishpatim, we do it because God says so, but they're understandable because we get an explanation with them. And then there are the traditional laws where we celebrate Passover because it's Passover, and it signifies Passover. And we celebrate Shavuot because it signifies what happened, Shavuot, etc. Right? Is that
that's a very simple way of looking at it. Yes. I'd caution you saying that Shavuot is representative of anything, because when we read the Torah portion, it's not. It's not. Shavuot does not represent the giving of the 10 Commandments. That's not what Shavuot is. But so what is it? Maybe we'll get there when we cover that Torah portion. That one is a strange one. Shavuot really is a strange one. It's acceptable and it's understood that, yes, this is the time frame of when the 10 Commandments was given. But Shavuot, in the commandment of Shavuot and keeping Shavuot, there's no connection with giving of the Ten Commandments or with the covenant.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what are we going to read?
Yeah, what are we going to read?
Jesse?
Frank, you had a topic tonight. You had a topic you wanted to discuss. So let's look at those verses that cover that topic, and let's jump right into it.
Oh, and I just scrolled past it, and I'm trying to find it again. Dadgummit.
Oh no. See, we rambled and we talked and we debated
right,
and we discussed and we had 6.5 opinions before the show even started about what we're going to talk about tonight. And the one thing we failed to do is, what are we going to read?
Well, no, as soon as I find it, it was 20. No, it was about a
yes. It's going to be 2016. Or, I'm sorry, 20 is chapter 21, verse 16 specifically is what you're getting to. Whoever kidnaps a man and he is found in his possession shall surely be put to death. So where do we start with this?
Come on, I'm having computer problems. Hold on.
No, this is a tough one because there's really no way around it. What I'd suggest, Jesse, if you will read
the third Aliyah.
21. I would just say read chapter 20. Let's just do the first Aliyah, the first portion, chapter 21, 1 through 16.
Alrighty then.
Okay. Un moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah. Melech ne'eman.
Amen. Exodus chapter 21, verse 1 through 17. And these are the ordinances that you shall set before them. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a married man, his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. His master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the doorpost or to the door, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. If she is displeasing to her master, who did not designate her for himself, then she shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another person when he betrays her. And if he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the law of the daughters of Israel. If he takes another wife for himself, he shall not diminish her sustenance, her clothing, or her marital relations. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go free without charge, without payment of money. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death, but one who did not stalk him, but God brought it about into his hand, I will make a place for you to which he shall flee. But if a man plots deliberately against his friend to slay him with cunning, even from my altar you shall take him to die. And one who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And whoever kidnaps a man and he is found in his possession shall surely be put to death. And one who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam nota b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Naaman. And I'm sorry if that's not the same cantillation as some people. It's the way I learned it. So I apologize. Okay, so we have
Yeah, a lot of specific ordinances or statutes or laws that are laid down here. I mean, this whole Torah portion, Mishpatim, we have more individual commandments or individual
explanations.
laws that are laid down, but we also have, like you said, Frank, is we have instructions or laws or commandments with a little bit of explanation.
Right, something that kind of makes sense. It's not this grand mystical. Oh, you shall dance on one foot and do this. Okay, why? Because I told you to. That's not what's being represented here. This is an explanation along with the ordinance, at least a partial explanation, something that would have been common knowledge at the time, and if we wanted to go anything deeper, we'd actually have to go to Talmud to explain some of the rest of the stuff, right?
Yeah. There's so much going on here because just even what the very beginning, the Ve'ale Hamishpatim. This is how our Torah portion starts. Ve'ale Hamishpatim, and these are the ordinances, or these are the statutes that God that you will obey. And it's a continuation of last week. There's no separation here. We separated based on concepts or topics, or we'll break it down to make it a little bit shorter so that it fills in a Torah portion. I mean, however the rabbis originally decided to break apart the Torah portions throughout the year to make it a full year reading, their judgment and their wisdom on doing so is unique throughout any religion. But they all agree that we have the Decalogue, or we have the 10 utterances that were given last week in Parashah Yithro. At the end of that, we have, oh yes, there's going to be a Sabbath, which there's no explanation for. We don't have all the rules on it. And then you're going to build the Mishkan. You're going to build this tabernacle that I'm going to dwell with you. And we don't have the instructions on that yet. And here are the Mishpatim. And we go through this, and it starts out with Hebrew servants or Hebrew slaves to Hebrews. From there, it goes on to treating Hebrews treating Hebrews, or Israelites treating Israelites. How do they treat each other? Then it goes on to how Israelites are going to treat animals, how Hebrews are going to treat animals. Then it goes on to how Hebrews and Israelites are going to treat property. We have a descending order developing for us. And the rabbis saw this and they said, oh, so is there a descending order in the 10 utterances, the Decalogue, which starts out, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods in my face. Now, I just translated it almost literally, because the word there for that first commandment is panei. It's in my face. Lo panei. You will not have any other gods in my face. And Judaism quanders on this. What do you mean by in my face? What does that mean? Nothing. And they go back and they quote and they use as a proof text several other places where, one, you saw nothing on the mountain when you received the covenant. You saw nothing. You saw the words, but you saw no form, no visage, no image. And therefore you will put nothing in the place of that image. Well, wait a minute, there was no image. What do you mean? How can I put something in that place? And the very next one, if we're going in either an order of precedence or we're digressing as we go through this, just like in Mishpatim, then the very next one is, you will not create an idol. Isn't that the same as putting something in the place of me? No, it's not. And we continue on. But here we start out with instructions on how you treat slaves, and we go all the way through this, and some of it actually matches up with those 10 commandments. And now we're to the point of you will not kidnap anybody.
Right.
And if you kidnap a Hebrew, you're going to be put to death.
Right.
Frank,
And
you're on.
Thanks a lot.
Before I pass it on to Frank, we might this question immediately is straight into what Frank is about to talk to.
Okay.
We immediately have a question on the board. Whoever kidnaps someone must be put to death, regardless of whether he has already sold him or the person is found still in his possession. Why does this differ from what I read? Was it added to what was read? And that was the CJB version that was quoted.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm unfamiliar. What does CJB stand for? I'm not sure what that is.
The Complete Jewish Bible. I have.
The complete.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I'm thinking JPS and I've got the Koran and okay, all right, yeah, and so we've got different versions of Bibles, and again, whether it be Judaism or Christianity, a version is someone's version of the translation. It is not a direct translation,
right?
But that's fine. I'm not understanding the question, Jesse.
I'm trying to.
It goes straight into what Frank is talking about.
It's primarily the whole question of why does what I'm about to read, whoever kidnaps someone must be put to death, regardless of whether he has already sold him or the person is found still in his possession. Why does that, in the Complete Jewish Bible version, differ from what Chabad has?
Oh, because what Jesse read was Chabad.org. It's their version, and I can go to what I really love is my trope trainer, because that's where I'm learning to cant the Hebrew and read it, and it's going to be very similar. But why is there a difference? I don't know, Frank. Did you want to tackle this one?
I read the Chabad version. It just states, what it states, what Jesse read. So, I mean, I'm trying to.
The easy answer is, well, gee, I don't know why there's a difference in versions. Yeah,
no,
so
I can't. I'm trying to wrap my head around the difference in the text. I'm trying to pull up the screen at the same time. So.
Yeah, so it starts out Vegonev ish, which is Vegonev ish is someone who captures a man. Umcharo benin veyato.
I get it.
And is found in his hand. He shall surely be put to death. So more of a literal translation is someone that captures a man who is found in his possession, who is found in his grasp, and it's really possession, who's found in his possession. He, meaning the one who did the kidnapping, shall be put to death. So
right.
We really might be belaboring something here that I'm not sure that's what the question is on the chat room.
Well, Jesse, the text was, if he's found in his possession or not, correct?
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So there's a difference in Chabad where it says, "Whoever kidnaps a man and he is found in his possession shall surely be put to death," and the
CJB says
the CJB
says whether it's found in his possession or not, he shall be put to death. All right. So I don't understand where CJB might be coming from. What I will say is this. Even though it says he shall be put to death, we still must go back to what are the rules when we get into Vayikra, in Leviticus. What are the rules in order to carry out capital punishment? In other words, this is a crime that is punishable by death. Then we go to Vayikra and we learn, how do you prosecute a crime that is punishable by death?
Right.
And
that's what I was.
It's very obscure. It's almost confusing. So then we go to what are the traditions on how this was ever carried out from the time of Moses up until the Second Temple. During that time, we get a better understanding because life is so precious. Even the life of a sinner, even the life of a reprobate, even the life of someone that has purposely set out to murder someone else, even that life is precious. And so we set up the court, and it's based on last week's Torah portion with Yithro, the tens, the 50s, the hundreds, the thousands. And then over that court is what has become established as the Sanhedrin. Yes, that is Torah, but follow along with me. We have the Sanhedrin. Within the Sanhedrin, all capital crimes must immediately go to the Sanhedrin. The lower courts cannot decide a capital crime. Why? Because we're talking about death. It is that important to God, that important to the philosophy and the understanding of our religion. Is death is so important, it's going to be immediately elevated up to Moses' seat, the Sanhedrin.
Right. And there
Now,
always must be some person
and if
representing.
Yes, and if you're going to bring a charge of capital punishment on someone to the Sanhedrin, then there must, of a necessity, be certain things that were established before you brought this forth. One, you had to have warned the individual. You had to approach the individual and understood, do you know what you're doing? Yes, I know what I'm doing. Do you realize that this goes against Torah? Yes, I realize it goes against Torah. Do you realize it carries the punishment of death? Yes, I realize it carries the punishment of death. You're coming with us. This is the man picking up sticks on Sabbath. It wasn't that he violated Sabbath. It was that he was denying God.
Yeah.
This is the man that's accused of murder. It wasn't that he murdered somebody and plotted. It's that he recognized, he knew, and he's still going to go against God and God's rules. The man that it is found in his hands or not. The point is, there has to be set up 2 or 3 witnesses. And those 2 or 3 witnesses had to have gone to the individual. And the individual still his mindset was, I don't care, I'm doing this anyways. Now you bring him before. Now you have a capital crime.
Let's attack Israel from behind. What are you, crazy? I don't care. I'm still doing it anyways.
Yeah.
Amalek. Yeah.
Amalek, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we have a Torah-based idea that life is tantamount, and even against the American judicial system, where we can appeal to a higher court, we can search for a better answer for ourselves by appealing. It's not so much in a Torah-based court, and even within a Torah-based court, killing someone is so abhorrent. You just don't do it. That's why Judaism looks at the New Testament and says, what, are you serious? These people took up stones to kill somebody on their own? There's no record of such thing in all of Judaism. We've done a lot of horrible things, but we never took the law in our own hands. So that's why Judaism has a tough time with the New Testament, is because some of the things that are written there, the way it's translated into English and the way it's portrayed by Christians, this goes against Torah. Just the whole aspect of that. And that's why it's like, there's too many confusing things here. This is craziness. This is Meshuggah. So
anyway,
within the court system, whoever kidnaps a man and he is found in his possession shall surely be put to death. Where does this come out of the 10 Commandments, Frank?
Well, here's the preface, at least the way I understand it. And the way I listened to a rabbi recently who described it, and I don't remember his reference. But every breaking of the 10 words, 10 utterances, whatever you want to call it, is subject to capital punishment. If you put gods before God's face, capital punishment. If you make God, images of some other god, capital punishment. If you take his name in vain, if you blaspheme, capital punishment. If you don't keep the Sabbath, capital punishment. If you don't honor your mother and father, capital punishment. If you steal. Now, not stealing as I need a loaf of bread to live. Okay, not stealing as in, my family's starving. I need to take that goat and just feed my family. Okay, in this portion, there are ways to take care of that and what the person has to pay back. Whether it be 4 or 5 times or just double, depending upon what it is. But if you steal a person, specifically here, it's talking about, in my opinion, it's talking about another Hebrew, another Jew. You are stealing directly from God. And that, capital punishment.
Okay, so when we set up the whole situation of giving them the 10 Commandments, we have several warnings. Don't approach the mountain, no
Right.
man, no woman. Men, you got to separate yourself, no contact with women, no animals, no children, nothing approaches the mountain. And Moses comes up and God says, go back down and warn them again. I already did that, God, do it again. Okay, I'll go down and warn them again. Come back up. Oh, no, go back down and remind them. This is so important because anybody that comes close to this mountain is going to die. So there we have something of a precedence.
Yep.
What is coming forth is life and death.
Right.
And so the immediate assumption would be any violation of these 10 utterances that come forth carries the penalty of death.
Right.
If you have any other gods before me, you're dead. You worship them, you're dead. You take the name of the Lord your God in vain, you're dead. You break the remembering and keeping and guarding the Sabbath, you're dead. You shall not murder. If you murder, you're dead. You commit adultery, you're dead. You shall not steal, you're dead. But when we get to the Mishpatim, it's almost like it's something more of an explanation. Okay,
Right.
Stealing, not all theft is death.
Right.
But the heart of stealing, what does that do? That if I steal a human, I'm punishable by death. But if I steal his property, the punishment is I have to repay it and add a fifth to it. What is the difference there? What's the heart of what God is getting at of stealing a human is death? Why is that death?
Again, my opinion is you're stealing directly. You're stealing another Jew, a Hebrew, from serving his God. And you're selling that person off to somebody else. In this time, somebody like a Canaanite or a Perizzite or a Jebusite who worships other gods. It's a direct affront to God's intent, his emotion, his caring for his people.
And that goes in line with there's some very old ancient writings saying that was it 2 tablets or was it 4 tablets or was it 1 tablet and was it 5 commandments on one and 5 commandments on the other, or was it 10 commandments on one and 10
I give you
commandments
these
on the other?
15. Oh
Yeah,
10.
yeah,
10
and
commandments.
it's really difficult. I mean, even within Judaism, these guys they pine it down to the minutia that drives most of us crazy when they're trying to understand. Because honestly, within a rabbinical frame of mind, this is all important. This is all a salvation issue.
Right. They don't want
I
to
mean,
get
I
it wrong.
remember back in the days, Frank, when you and I were on Pal Talk and we were discussing certain things, and people would come on and say, okay, well, whatever it may be, I don't care because it's not a salvation issue. And in a Jewish mindset, everything is a salvation issue.
Serving God is a salvation issue.
Exactly. And we're using Christian terms because Judaism doesn't view it as salvation. Judaism looks at all of Tanakh and says, there's extremely little, if absolutely nothing, that deals with how to get saved. All of Torah and Tanakh is dealing with how to live with God.
Right.
Salvation is a Christian made-up thing because they've got to convince people that there's a hell and a heaven. I'm really doing a tongue-in-cheek type of thing whenever I say this, but in all aspects, they've got a point.
Yes.
Tanakh Torah specifically is focusing on how to live, not how to get saved.
Right.
There's nothing here that tells you how to get saved. There's no point in salvation, because it's not that the premise of Judaism is not the same premise of Christianity. The premise of Christianity is I'm damned and I am a slave to sin. Ooh, we're going to deal with that in this Torah portion.
Oh, you're going to call Paul into this? Is that what you're going to call?
I'm going to call Christians' version of Pauline's doctrine.
All right, because Paul says those who run to the end of the race, those shall be saved.
Well, on an expansion to what people were saying earlier,
oh my gosh, we are really rambling and
we are going different directions at once. The whole statement, we have one person on Lamb Chat trying to expound on what you guys were saying about the stealing of a person, and I view this as one of those statements that you more hear whenever someone's trying to rob a store and you're the cashier. Property can be replaced. A human cannot be replaced.
Absolutely. True. And that's kind of the heart of it. So then
the other one was made mention, or like the story of Joseph.
Yes.
But there's a strange correlation there with Joseph and with the patriarchs and the Torah or the commandments. There's a strange correlation, because if you're going to ask, okay, how come Joseph's brothers weren't killed then, if the Torah says if you kidnap someone and sell them into slavery, the punishment is death, why weren't they liable unto death? The same thing would be said of Torah says it's against Torah to marry a woman and her sister, but yet we see that Jacob did this.
Yes.
There's so many things that we see in our patriarchs that go against the commandments, and Judaism, I've got to admit, I think Judaism struggles with coming up with explanations on it. I don't want to delve into it on this one specifically, but there's an interesting teaching that says, one, there was 2 tablets. Each tablet had 10 commandments on it. One tablet was for God, and one tablet was for the people, because after all, we're dealing with a covenant. Each party in the covenant gets a copy of the covenant. And the stipulations of this covenant are the 10 commandments and everything that follows. Everything that follows is explained and on how we're going to live out this covenant. But the basis of the covenant is the 10 utterances. And as Frank constantly points out, and I agree with him wholeheartedly on this, is these 10 utterances, these 10 commandments, these 10 utterances were a data burst. The Mishpatim in this Torah portion is part of that data burst. The rabbis see this, and so they go back and they say, for the first commandment, let me go back to it real quick. The first commandment, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods panim before my face, is equivalent to, you shall honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you. And then you go to the next commandment, no idols, is equivalent to, you shall not murder. How are these equivalent? Well, the rabbis go forth into this, and that is, man was created in the image of God. Man was created a free being for a purpose, and that purpose is to be conjoined with God. And therefore, murdering or harming that image of God is the same as acting against God. And it would be idolatry for you to act against the thing that God had created. And it continues on. So whenever it gets to you shall not steal, and that is somehow conjoined with not worshiping or even going into the Sabbath, how is not stealing conjoined with its equivalent of the first 5?
You're taking away.
It's a great question. You're taking away the freedom, which is what the Sabbath gives us.
Right.
You're
taking away the ability of the other person to worship God.
You're taking away the ability of the person to portray God in a physical realm. You're taking away the ability of the person, the free will to join with God. You're taking this away from, and you're harming God. You're not harming the person, because it's established with, I am God. There is nothing other than I. Everything flows from me. And in that aspect, when I come against Frank in word or action, I'm coming against God. Because why? Because Frank was made and created in the image of God.
He must be a handsome person.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
a little bit of levity.
Yeah, an image doesn't mean visage.
I know. Just Jesse, what was that number again?
Oh, the phone number. He posted it in the chat room. Jesse all of a sudden had a sneezing fit and went to go blow his nose real quick.
Is he okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
The phone number, he posted it in the chat room, and I'm going back to the chat room to find it real quick.
Well, here it is. It's 1-828-919-9100. If you want to, call in. I'm not sure we'll answer, but you can try. So, no, I'm kidding.
I would like someone to call in just to see if it works.
Me too. Me too.
So, Frank, with that, we're saying that the general idea, the overall of everything is, you violate one of the 10 utterances, the punishment is death.
Right.
But when we get to the mishpatim, it is, okay, the overall arching violation is against me and me alone. Hence, David when David comes up and he's killed Uriah, or he's ordered the death of Uriah, he has committed adultery with Bathsheba. The end result is David crying before God, and he says, God, against you and you alone have I sinned. Right. And I've got to look at this and go, now, wait a minute. That was my wife, David? Seriously? You're going to appeal to God?
All right. But you asked, who has the ability to deal with David? That was a conversation we had last week. And I said the only person who has the ability to deal with David is a prophet, and that was Nathaniel.
Well, that does lead into something rather interesting that branches off on this one, and it's a part of the portion we did not read. How, if I remember correctly, I might have to look it up to quote myself, but other people you cannot curse in this portion are also judges and princes of the people.
Okay.
Oh, so even though when Frank and I were discussing last week with Yithro, and you're going to establish people who fear God, who won't be sold out for money, and right, etc. We've got the stipulation of you choose this type of a person to be a leader. Even though I disagree with that person, I'm not allowed, according to Torah, to curse that individual.
All right. But what is a curse?
Yeah. Really, speaking against and wanting ill to fall upon that individual.
Right. As an example, just so everybody gets it straight in their mind, you can say, go yourself. Okay. Yes and no. That's not really that you're using foul language, but it's not a curse. If you say, may the fleas of 1,000 camels infest your armpits, that's a curse, because you're actually wishing physical discomfort, harm on somebody else, maybe even death, and that's not allowed. You can't come up with some eloquent Shakespearean insult at somebody, wishing them death, bodily harm, poverty, anything like that. Those are things you are sending a curse down upon someone. Once you do that, some people call it karma. I just call it what you sow is what you reap. That comes back to you.
Yeah. So okay. So we've got the correlation of the 10 utterances are given, and we're going to continue forth with it because it's one continual conversation. It's right, one continual thought. because the break is going to come a little bit later when now we're going to get into more instruction or different instruction, or I don't want to say it's an addendum, it's just further explanation of what these 10 utterances mean. But the Mishpatim is part of that, part of the 10 utterances. And so we're looking at this, if I kill, then I must be killed. And with the Mishpatim, it goes into great detail. It's not just killing anybody. However, we have the aspect of, if someone lies in wait, if he plots and plans, and his heart is intent on murdering this individual, then that person must be killed. He cannot even appeal to God. Meaning, it says in our Torah portion, take him even from the horns of the altar.
Right.
And that's where last week we discussed this, and this will come up several times again, of if I have kidnapped a fellow Jew, and I'm getting ready to sell him off into slavery, even that one, I can grab the horns of the altar and appeal to God for judgment on this one. Because circumstantial evidence, my goodness, it looks bad, but only God and God alone knows my heart as to what I was really trying to accomplish in this. There's no way I'm going to be able to explain this one away, but I'm going to appeal to God. When it comes to lying in wait in order to destroy the image of God on earth, to wipe away the visage, to eliminate a generation. Oh, now we're getting to the heart of even greater things. Because this deals with some of the other Mishpatim. Why is it okay for me to... I'm in a heated argument, and in my argument, somehow I strike out and hit a pregnant woman, and she miscarries. I just have to make a monetary payment for that. But yet when a woman in a heated argument reaches out and crushes my genitals, she's going to be killed? Her arm's going to be cut off for this? So where's the difference? The difference lies in the death of that one child. Is tragic. It's horrible. There's a monetary recompense because the generation can continue. But the crushing of the genitals destroys the hope of any generation coming from me. So there's a difference there. I don't think we can understand this in our modern, westernized, sterilized, Christian-influenced society to understand a generation is more important than the individual. Hence,
it's a very Eastern thought.
Abraham, though he was promised the land was never his. Because the land was promised to him, the promise and the covenant to Israel being freed from Egypt, the land is going to be given to them. This is why it becomes so abhorrent for a freed individual to say, I will remain a slave because I love my master. I love the wife he gave me. I love the children I gained under his household. And he feeds me and he wipes my nose and he wakes me up in the morning. I love this guy. I want to be his slave. You don't understand what you're saying.
Right. I want 3 hots and a cot. Yeah.
I must quickly flag.
You are now denouncing the basis of the covenant, which is Eretz Israel, the land itself. You've given up your rights to this land. You've given up your rights to being an individual, a free man, according to the Torah. That is why your ear is going to be pierced, because you are returning to slavery and the slave mentality. And Jesse,
I must briefly flag you down on that one, only because it provides a little bit more expansion and explanation on the difference between the crushing of male genitalia and the miscarriage of female. Because what it says here is, in the Chabad's version, and should men quarrel and hit a pregnant woman who miscarries, but there is no fatality.
What chapter and verse? Give us the chapter and verse so we can all read.
Exodus chapter 1, verse 22. Yes, that's what I said. Exodus chapter 1, verse 22.
And should men quarrel and hit a pregnant woman, and she miscarries, but there is no fatality, he shall surely be punished. But we don't know what that punishment is because it doesn't tell us.
Because later on, it does give what people would assume based on reading the text would be the punishment.
When the woman's husband makes demands of him,
Right.
and he shall give according to the judge's orders, the judges. And again, this is the same word that we see over and over, the Elohim. This was so crazy sometimes about understanding the Torah from a Christian perspective. Just because it says Elohim does not necessarily mean God. Elohim is a judge. So according to the Elohim's orders, again, we go back to the Elohim, and later on we're going to see that I am not allowed to go against the ruling of the Elohim, the judges. I can't say, oh, I disagree with you. No, that's punishable by death. Crazy things here. But if there is a fatality, you shall give life for life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. So does that mean that... Oh,
that puts a new twist on it, considering the miscarriage. If there is a fatality, it's a lot worse than if it's a miscarriage but no fatality.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the fatality in Jesse, you know Hebrew better than I do, but the fatality is connected with the woman, not with the infant. And oddly enough, that's a strange thing in Torah. But if there is a fatality, we're talking about not the infant, we're talking about either the woman or the man. Then the recompense is there must be equality within this. And it doesn't necessarily mean just because there was a fatality, now there must be another fatality. Just because I poked out your eye, now you get to poke out my eye. What if, and this is a rabbinical question and a quandary. Okay, so if I only have one eye, and I cause the blindness of one eye to another individual, is he to poke out my other eye? Where is there justice in that?
And there
isn't one. So we're not necessarily talking about a actual tooth for a tooth or eye for an eye or wound for a wound. We're talking about you must repay the equivalence of the loss of the other, period.
Right.
Whatever that repayment may be, you must repay it, because it's not about you losing something that you caused someone else to lose. It's about repayment in justice for what someone else has lost.
Which, to expound on that, if we move up a couple verses, if men quarrel, and chapter 21, verse 18 and 19, and if men quarrel and one strikes the other with a stone, with a fist, and he does not die but is confined to bed, if he gets up and walks about outside on his support, the assailant shall be cleared. He shall give only payment for his enforced idleness.
And this is one of those places where I disagree with Chabad's translation. They truly are giving an interpretation and a version to the translation, because a better translation is he is repaying for, and as we continue through this Torah portion, we're going to see this. He has got to pay for the damages. He pays for the time of loss of labor and the restoration. So he must pay for the damages. He must pay for the restoration, which means the medical payments.
Right.
And he paid the treatment, yes. And he must pay for the time of lost labor. In other words, whatever his ability of income would have been in the time period that he is recovering until he is fully restored, or restored as much as he can be. So we have three payments that must be made, and this is you'll find an excruciating explanation of this in Talmud. And this is the explanation of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, is you're going to pay for everything that was taken from this individual. That doesn't mean just because you just because you hit him and he lost eyesight in one eye, that now we're going to take out your eye. What does that do for the person that lost his eyesight? It does absolutely nothing for him. What it is talking about is a restitution for loss. That's what Torah is all about, a restitution of loss, whether it be loss of my abilities to comprehend and understand God, loss of my closeness and restoration to God, loss of the potential that I would have if I were Adam in the garden. I'm almost talking very esoteric and almost Kabbalistic whenever I say such things, but that's the point of Torah, is restoring that loss. How is that loss restored? I caused it upon myself, says Adam. And because I caused it upon myself and I bore children, now my children must be restored. How is this possible? How are my children restored to the point of where I was, living in harmony, coexistent, fully spiritual and fully physical in the garden, dwelling with God, earth producing what it was meant to be, man producing what man was meant to be, in order to be cohabitating with God in the physical. That's the point and the goal of what Torah is all about. This is what we're trying to describe throughout Mishpatim. Again, all of Torah is, and this is a hard thing to sometimes comprehend and understand. Torah is, this is how God views justice, not what man is supposed to do. If we constantly view it as, I have to do this, the law says I do this, we're missing the point. I think this is the heart of the New Testament. This is the heart of Jesus and Pauline's writings. As crazy as some of the writings are, and I really think they are, I think some of those writings are crazy and contradictory, but the heart of it is, this is how God views things. And to belabor the point, we can go back to Abraham. Abraham is looking at Sodom and the 5 cities. Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember, it was 5 cities. It wasn't just 2, Sodom and Gomorrah. It was 5 cities. And 3 angels approach him at the time that he is on his 3rd day of circumcision. And Abraham's heart and his desire was to do God. So he reaches out, and God says, should I withhold from Abraham, my servant? Look at this guy. He's striving after my own heart. Should I withhold from him justice? What I'm going to do with Sodom and Gomorrah? No, he needs to understand justice. And we go into this long discussion. Well, gee, God, if there's only 1,000 righteous, will you destroy the whole city? If there's 50 righteous, if there's 10, if there's just 10 righteous individuals, will you destroy the whole city? And we think that Abraham, forgive the pun here, but we think Abraham's Jewing God down. No. Abraham is striving to understand what is God's version of justice in this situation. From that perspective, we see Torah is God's mind. And as soon as we get into that concept, this is how God thinks, the better we are to understand and ask proper questions of Torah, as opposed to saying, the Jews, they're crazy, they're stupid, they killed Jesus, they're Christ killers.
Yeah,
Talmud, they're just fences around fences. That's Talmud, fences around fences. I can come boldly before the throne. Well, Torah doesn't say you can come boldly before the throne. Torah says if you try such a crazy thing, you're going to be killed.
Right.
Aaron's 2 sons.
Right. And I worry about the fences around fences simply because I am striving to understand why there are so many guardrails around guardrails. I get the guardrail so you don't go off the cliff. I get that. But the guardrail that extends 15 feet out from that and 15 feet out from that, 15 feet out from that, I get a little worrisome about. But
I agree.
Oh, I could actually present an example to help counter with what you were saying, if I can just find it. In one of the discussions I had read, it goes into great detail as to the explanation as to why, because we see our first reference to it here in this portion, why in Judaism through Talmud they separate at least 6 hours of having dairy after you have already eaten meat. They take it to that much of an extent. The main point that was presented on that discussion was talking about the concepts of if your prayer to God for the sanctification of what you are about to eat is valid.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Explain that.
I'll need to find it.
You're on a great.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
You're
Well,
you're on a very great point there
Right.
with that, and the whole idea of as long as we're focusing on the fences, we're missing the point of
Right.
God's perspective, and that's
Right.
what all I'm trying to bring about.
Right.
When we focus on what you shall not do or what you have to do, we're missing the point. And this is I want to say this, and Frank, I'll turn it over to you as soon as I do. If we understand we were slaves, we were the lowest of the low, we were debased in all aspects, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. We are at our very bottom. And God comes and redeems us through his might, through his strength, on the basis of his promise of someone else who had earned the right. We are being redeemed. Through this redemption, now here are the instructions for living. I can look at it in one of two ways. One, this is the way God is. I want to cohabitate with God. Therefore, I love God. I am going to. Not that it's even beyond that. It's not that I'm going to. It's I get to. I get to do these commandments. This opportunity has been presented to me. I get to do this. I love my father. He says, son, clean up your room. I love dad. He wants me to clean up the room because he's proud of his son. He's proud of his dwelling place. So I'm going to clean my room. I get to do this because I'm living with my father. As opposed to, oh, I've got to clean my room. Okay, I'll do just enough. I'll hide the dirty laundry under the bed. He can't see that, right? It's that mindset, and from Christianity we get the aspect of, oh, God was this horrible demanding God, and if you don't do it just right, you're dead, and there's no salvation in that God. But we have a different God over here in the New Testament, and that violates the first commandment: you will have no other gods in my face.
Right.
You've placed another God here. That's not truth. That's not reality. That is not healthy. Speaking of healthy, the second way of looking at this is, I am sick, and God has given me a prescription. For men, because men are the sickest of all of us, for men, you are going to do these things. This is for your health. This is what makes you well. For men, you're going to wear tzitzit. Women, you don't have to. Not saying you can't, but why would you? You don't need that. You don't need that aspirin. You're not ailing in that way. Wearing tzitzit for a woman, it does nothing for you. The health, the remedy is for the man because the man is sick. The remedy for a woman is a little bit different. And this is where we can go on to Vayikra with the whole aspect of the immersion of the mikveh.
Right.
Why is it that a man must immerse himself after having conjugal relations with his wife, but the wife does not? We misunderstand this because we haven't read, we haven't studied, we haven't looked at it from God's eyes. We keep on looking at it from our eyes. How do I approach God? I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. Let's look at it from God's eyes. People, this is the way I am. Join with me. Don't find a way to join with me. Now, Frank, your points.
Okay. Well, in general, Torah, Tanakh, is how to rejoin, or as Brad likes to say, how we get back to the garden. It's, as you said, I get to do this. This is a reunification process with God. Blessed be He. It's not, okay, I fill up this many hash marks on a card. I've got all my blocks filled. Okay, I can be promoted, right? Right? No.
Yeah, no, that's working for your wages. No,
Exactly.
sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Exactly. It is about loving God and doing what he wants and living in such a way that we can be restored to him.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Frank, it's not just living the way he wants, it's living his way. In other words, this is God. I want to be a part of God, so I'm going to live the way God lives.
Right. And I misspoke, but that's essentially what I mean. It's like you said, I get to. It's okay, Dad, let's go fishing. Well, son, first we have to take care of this. Okay, all right, we'll do this. And now we can go fishing, right? Yeah, now we can go fishing. Okay. It's not. It's not necessarily Mayberry RFD or Leave It to Beaver, but it is a wholesome thing, a wholesome, heart-filling, emotionally filling idea, understanding to follow Torah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
It's that whole aspect of having the mind or the heart of God. If we go back and look at this is the way God thinks, this is the way God acts, then we're approaching it from a different aspect of, oh, if I want to be a part of God, then I must do these things. No, I get to do these things. The rabbis of old have the aspect of what is the payment, or what is the reward of doing a commandment? The commandment itself,
right?
And that gets lost in translation. But the aspect is the reward of doing the commandment is I get to do the commandment. I get to. And that mindset and that understanding is so lost when we're tied up with the misconception of who and what God is, that now suddenly we're tied up into other teachings and other misconcepts that Christianity has sold us, that we bought into from their perspective of the New Testament, as opposed to what is the Hebraic or the Jewish perspective of Torah. Now let's look at the New Testament.
Right.
And if we have a better understanding of Torah, we'll have a better understanding of what Paul is talking about and what Jesus is referring to. Otherwise, I'm going to come out and tell you, if you're going to take the very Christian approach, we got a huge contradiction. Christianity is the Antichrist. In their own words, if I'm using what Christianity says and what Torah says, Christianity is the Antichrist. Islam is the Antichrist. Democrats are the Antichrist, and Republicans are the Antichrist. I mean, it's one of those things. I'm not trying to just single out Christianity is what I'm trying to avoid here.
And it's the teachings that have been handed down. And
exactly.
I have to be honest.
It's the Christian Talmud. I mean,
right,
Christianity and Messianists want to reject Talmud, but they preach Talmud. It's their own Talmud.
Right. It's the teachings that have been handed down that have been skewed, because we have, as I've said before, we have, first century, Yeshua walked amongst us. By 325 AD, the quote-unquote church had become anti-Semitic? Wait a second. And those things were all done to consolidate power. Constantine wanted to consolidate power.
Yeah, and Frank, I don't mean to cut you off early, but we really are running out of time. And
I know that was
that's going to take us down a completely different rabbit trail.
Right.
There was one other thing I wanted to bring up, and that is at the end of our Torah portion here, for the ending of this week, is a very, very strange concept. And it is that of an angel. We have an angel that within all this teaching, God is going to provide an angel that's going to do certain things and make sure you don't disobey the words of this angel, because he cannot forgive. This somewhat violates the concept of angels that we've seen in the past up until now and from now forward. So Messianists come back and say, well, this angel is the Messiah, but I don't necessarily disagree, but they must come back and answer, what is the concept of this angel when it's placated against, or when we do the correlation of this angel in another place. And I'm trying to drag this out so I can get to it. It's Exodus 33. We're going to see this in a couple of Torah portions. Exodus 33. This is after the sin of the golden calf. This is after the people have sinned, and we'll talk about that whole incident there, because there's three different categories of sin, three different categories of people during the sin of the golden calf. But at the end result of this, it says in Exodus 33 verse 1, then the Lord spoke to Moses, depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you brought up from the land of Egypt, to the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, saying, to your descendants I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite. Is there a difference between the angel in our Torah portion here and the angel that Moses actually he kind of rejects in Exodus 33? Because the end of this discussion with Moses and God in Exodus 33, you go up, I can't go up with you, but I'm going to send an angel before you and I will still drive out the inhabitants of the land for you. And Moses says, if you don't go up with us, we ain't going, angel or no angel. But here in our Torah portion, we have that whole promise, or that whole not sure how you would depict it. The is it a commandment? Is it not sure what it is, but it's in Exodus 24. It says, let me get there real quick. I'm scrolling. I've got too many screens open.
Okay, we got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I wanted to read this exactly. It says, Jesse, I just missed it.
Okay, if you haven't figured it out,
the
this is
verse,
2.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
the verse,
sign us off, Frank.
No, I'm just filling air until you find it.
The verse you were talking about is Exodus chapter 23, verse 20, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. It's verse 20. It says, behold, I am sending an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you into the place that I have prepared for you. Beware of him and obey him. Do not rebel against him, for he will not forgive your transgressions, because my name is within him. For if you will listen to his voice and do what I say, I will be against your enemies and oppress your adversaries. For my angel will go before you and bring you to the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Canaanite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and I will destroy them. And then it goes on, you'll not prostrate yourself before other gods. So who or what is this angel? And you must bear in mind, the word here is still Melech, or Malach. The word is Malach. It's still messenger. But this messenger seems to be separated in some aspect from God, even though this messenger has God's name on him. And we also have the aspect of the high priest has God's name on him. And the high priest, therefore, is separated and is the final rule over the Sanhedrin. The high priest has all kinds of aspects about him. We will see that the Malach, Moses will send Malach. Moses is considered a Malach, an angel. So is this an angel, what we consider the spiritual being, or is this an actual thing? And even Judaism argues back and forth. Behold, I am sending an angel before you. God is saying to Israel, I am sending Moses before you. Moses is my servant. Moses is my messenger. And we have that throughout and replete through all of Tanakh, if not just Torah, that Moses is a malach, a messenger, an angel. So is this angel Moses? Is this angel something else? And it goes into a very deep discussion of what are angels, when are angels, and how are we to address angels. No matter what, a malach, a messenger, an emissary, is to be treated with the same respect as the person that sent the emissary. So if I'm the President of the United States sending Frank as my messenger to Russia, Russia will accept Frank in my name. Russia will treat Frank with the same respect they would treat me as the President of the United States. And they will listen to Frank, but they in no way would ever equate Frank with me.
Cool, I get a 6-figure job. Cool, I get a pay raise.
So who or what is this angel? Because this is the one and only time in all of Torah and Tanakh where this angel is somewhat separated from God. So is it a spiritual being? Is it Moses? Is it something else? Is it like the Messianics say? Is this the Messiah? If this is the Messiah, then we must address Exodus chapter 33, where we're given an angel all over again that's going to lead us. And Moses rejects this. Rejects the concept of such thing. And that's 2.5 opinions. And back to you, Frank and Jesse.
Chris, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just trying to fill the.
No,
the
I know,
air.
and I had too many things open on my laptop.
Right. So I figured I'd throw a little bit in there just so we can fill the dead air and let you have more time to find what you were looking for. But no, I don't know. I don't know that it's. I can't say that it's Moses. I don't know. It is different. It is something to think about for next week, maybe.
Jesse found what he was looking for, and let's just go ahead and sign off with this. Okay. Mark is here, and Mark is 56 today. Today's Mark's birthday?
No.
Frank's, your birthday's this week, isn't it? Or is
it's
your
today.
Birthday today? Frank is 56 today, and I turn 39 again later on this week.
Baloney. Baloney.
Well, to continue, I'm leaving a good chunk of the explanation portion out, but what I was targeting whenever I brought up the whole meat and dairy thing, and I'm about to make a bunch of references towards different groups in Judaism who have been debating this constantly. What they were trying to imply, one possible practical ramification of the question on waiting a time frame before partaking of dairy after taking meat.
Now we're going back to putting up fences upon fences.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, but there's also, you shall not see the kid and its mother's milk in this portion.
Yes. Using that commandment of don't boil a kid in its mother's milk, the mindset that many people have come up about the fences upon fences in Judaism, this is why this right here explains a good explanation as to why they debate it so strongly, and they put the so-called fences upon fences. The explanation is this. One possible practical ramification of this question, debating between the two, relates to the situation of one who mistakenly recites a brecha over milk and cheese within 6 hours of eating meat. The brecha would be the blessing upon the milk. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who this.
Yeah, and sometimes I think definitely Christians and many Messianics miss the whole understanding. Jews will have a blessing for everything, because the intent and the purpose of the blessing is not I have to, it is I am acknowledging God in everything. Hence the blessing. Blessed are you, O Lord our God. I am acknowledging God in everything I consume, everything I see, everything I touch, everything I do, even in evacuating my bowels and bladder. I
So is there a
acknowledge
blessing
that.
for the
Exactly.
czar?
Yes, there's a blessing.
Exactly.
So within
And
this,
expounding to, I'm going to try to read all of this real quick. Expounding on that, that is where they are going with this. One who mistakenly recited a brecha over milk or cheese within 6 hours of eating meat, and before consuming the milk and cheese, he remembered that he may not consume the food at that point. Several halakhic authorities address the question of whether a person in this situation should take a sip of the milk or a bite of the cheese, despite the prohibition against drinking milk at this time, in order that the brecha would not have been recited in vain.
so in other words, when I say a blessing, blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has Borei Bria Gafem, who is given us the fruit of the vine, then if I say that blessing and not sip the wine, then I've said the blessing in vain and nullified God and the wine. So we're saying the same thing here. Is he's saying a blessing over his meal, but he just remembered he ate meat. I've said this blessing over the dairy, but I ate meat less than so many hours ago. Should I eat the dairy or should I not? Go forward.
And I'm skipping a good chunk of portion for the sake of time, but afterwards, the compilation and understanding at the end, the ruling of the Zachor LeAvraham, a group in Judaism, then reflects the view that Chazal did not impose a forbidden status upon dairy foods during this 6-hour period, but rather imposed a requirement upon the individual to refrain from dairy foods during this period, a requirement which, at least according to some opinions, is overridden by the desire to avoid the situation of brecha levatala.
Levatala, which is the blessing over
Yes.
dairy products, yeah. And the average individual that would be listening to this show is, why are you even discussing this? Oh my gosh, that's craziness. You're getting into minutia. Yes, we are, because it goes back to the premise again. A Jewish mindset is God is involved in every aspect of my life, whether I have indigestions, bad dreams, sexual relations with my wife, or I'm mad at Frank. It doesn't matter. God is involved in my life because God is the source of my life. So therefore,
He's always been everybody bad at me. I didn't do nothing.
Therefore, as Paul says, in everything you do, and he's teaching Gentiles. He's not teaching Jews. Jews know this. Jews live this. He's teaching Gentiles. When we read Paul, you got to understand. He's talking to Gentiles, not Jews. He's trying to train up Gentiles on how to be Jews, not Jews on how to be Christians.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, it is time to
saying in everything you do as though you're doing it for God, and that's the heart of what this idea that Jesse was bringing forward with this. So, sign us out. We got to get out of here.
Well, actually, before we go, I'm being reminded that you're going to be on with Mark tomorrow morning, and something about you being an expert history researcher.
Oh yeah, is that tomorrow or is that this week? No, he's got a special guest, and this guy, his name is just. I've just lost his name here. A great Civil War buff. I mean, this guy has some insight and some understanding of the political aspects and the zeitgeist, the spirit of the day of the nation during the time of the Civil War, leading up to the Civil War and through the Civil War, that is very reminiscent to what we're living through today. More so today, I think, any other time since the Civil War.
I guess his name is Jimmy Ward.
Jimmy Ward. That's who it is. an author, a historian, great information. So please chime in to just visiting this planet tomorrow morning. I think he's going to start tomorrow morning, and I think Mark's going to have him a couple other times. It should be astounding. Should be great. I am not the historian of the Civil War that
okay.
this man is, though I have studied so many aspects from a tactical perspective of the war itself, as well as
Pickett's charge.
Yeah, well, yeah. Pickett was he still was the goat of West Point. The goat of West Point, for those that don't know. Pickett was the lowest of the low in order of graduation. In other words, you've got the summa cum laude all the way down to who was the last in the class. That was Pickett, and he leads his charge, wipes out his entire
right. In a class of 500, he was number 501.
Exactly.
Is that why the fence named after him is useless?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But this guy has some great stuff. And for me,
I will endeavor to get up tomorrow morning and tune in.
I'm looking forward to it because I want to ask this guy. All right, tell me, can any other president do what Abraham Lincoln did? I'm a fan of Abraham Lincoln, but yet at the same time, Abraham Lincoln shredded the United States Constitution.
Yes, he did.
He tore it up and threw it away. He set it aside on purpose. But from his own words, he did so in order to preserve the Constitution and the Union.
Right.
Anyways, we got to get out of here because
we don't want Mark mad at us. So, but hey, this is 2.5 opinions. I'm glad you all showed up. All right. Thank you very much. And as far as tomorrow goes, tune in to Just Visiting This Planet with Mark and guests, and Chris will be there. I'll try to tune in to listen, but I like to sleep in on Sunday. So, but this is 2.5 opinions. We thank you for being here. Hopefully, we raised some questions and gave some information, and it was worth listening to. And I'm Frank.
I'm Nisha.
And I'm not the Rebbe.
Sure you're not. Okay. Anyway, thank you for listening. We're glad that you were here. And that's it. Take care. Okay. I guess we're going to close the room, so... Okay. Remember, the short, disclaimer here is, if your speakers break or your computer breaks because I sing, I am in no way liable for any damages caused by that or any cameras that take my picture, okay? So, let me see if I can remember the song. Let me see. Do I remember the words? Okay. Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The flowers and the trees sing the song of Shabbos. The valleys and the mountains sing the song of Shabbos. The stars in the skies sing the song of Shabbos. The angels in heaven Sing the song of Shabbos, the whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos, the whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos, and I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos, I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I saw 6 million dying. They sang the song of Shabbos. I hear 3 million crying to sing the song of Shabbos. Stop all the hatred. Sing the song of Shabbos. Love one another, sing the song of Shabbos, dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos, dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos, the whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos, the whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos, and I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbos. There. Are you happy now, Charlotte? Do it again, do it again. Come on, will you?
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Do not touch that dial. Do not click off that page. We are Lamb Radio.
Love those intros. I will offend someone by this teaching, by the way. And I think everyone would agree that communication is the number one issue that creates offenses. Sometimes an action will offend someone, but most of the time it's extremely poor communication that causes offenses. This teaching's been a long time coming. We're going to do this a long time ago. So in all my notes, I've kind of put them together. And so if I'm going to try not to read this, but it's going to be more like I'm reading because so many notes. I'm probably the biggest offender when it comes to communication. I try real hard to rearrange my words or expressions to communicate my true feelings towards situations and people to head off a possible offensive communication issue. One of these issues to me is the wrong use of the word or the expression, I'm sorry. Some people often unconsciously apologize to communicate an image of kindness and concern, whereas others typically resist apologizing unless the act feels warranted. This in itself Let me hear this in it. Sorry. Sorry, I got distracted there. This in itself can be very offensive if not communicated right. Just like what I've been doing throughout the show, you've been noticing I've been slipping in the phrase "I'm sorry" into the conversation. Sometimes as a real apology, other times as a mere transitional or buffer phrase. Unfortunately, this habit, in my opinion, confuses listeners and discredits the speaker. The Urban Dictionary definition says that it is a phrase carelessly thrown about by people who want to lessen their guilt. It does not actually show that they care about the person they hurt. My research shows that women in general, often say, "I'm sorry" as a way of showing concern, empathy, and understanding. If you've seen me very much on any of the shows, I rarely separate women and men because these days I think it's pretty general. You can find as many women that offense over the same thing as men do, vice versa. In general, women say "I'm sorry" as a way of showing concern, empathy, and understanding. The term is used to indicate their personal connection, appreciation of a problem, and sense of care and closeness. "I'm sorry" functions for women as shorthand for "I'm with you. You and I are on the same page." Also, women, this is my research. I'm just going by research of what I've seen. Women's use of "I'm sorry" to express affinity and compassion is understandable and often even admirable, but it can be quite bad in many situations. For example, suppose your boss or colleague said, "Our client is upset," or "We just lost that account," or "Our presentation went badly." Responding to remarks with "I'm sorry" can suggest that you are in some way responsible for things having gone wrong, or at a minimum, you are clueless about the seriousness of the situation. If you've had nothing to do with the mishap, you should avoid "I'm sorry" and focus instead on how things can be put right, perhaps by saying something like this: "I have an idea of how we can calm this person down," or "How can we make sure that doesn't happen again?" And in workplaces, it's actually a lot more prevalent to make sure your communication is set specifically in a situation. In life, in general, situations where you are in no way responsible, find a way to direct the conversation towards fixing the problem or changing matters going forward. However you respond, don't appear to be apologizing by saying "I'm sorry." There are, of course, situations in which saying "I'm sorry" is perfectly appropriate as an expression of sympathy and solidarity. For example, saying "I'm sorry that this issue has happened to you," or even better, "Is there anything I can do to help?" may be the best thing you can say when a friend tells you they suffer a recent injury or have been sick. To me, a lot of times, and I know most of us have been through this, is when somebody has gone through a tragedy, saying "I'm sorry, I know how you feel" is the exact opposite of what you want to say, because each situation is so different, especially in a tragedy. These types of bad news situations are very different from those that involve someone's personal screw up. With these unfortunate and faultless circumstances, using other words that are synonymous to "sorry" is likely to be helpful and very much appreciated. Words and or expressions like "that makes me sad," or "that makes me unhappy," or "that makes me heavy-hearted or mournful," can be much more appreciated by the person you're talking to and a lot less offensive. You could also say something like, "This is distressing," and go on with how you feel about that, or an example of what you might say, or "I'm grieved over your situation." And once again, explain how you're grieved through that. To me, is a lot less offensive, and it really expresses how you truly do feel. But by saying "I'm sorry for this" can go off into a thousand different scenarios. You should always be ready to comfort someone in their time of distress, but not at the expense of bad communication. Oh my gosh, can you believe this? Believe it or not. Let me turn my phone down. So sorry. I usually do this. Okay. There's a third type of situation in which saying "I'm sorry" may not raise a doubt about your culpability, comprehension, or competence, but which is nevertheless a weak response. For example, suppose someone says "it's raining." In this type of situation, a response other than "I'm sorry" is likely to be far more appreciated and appropriate. The best appropriate is to cast things in a more positive light or offer a possible solution. Saying something like the following might be useful and appreciated. "I hear the weather will be better tomorrow." Somebody says it's raining. Say, "I'm sorry." And I, believe it or not, I do get this response from a lot of people, and immediately my thought is, might want to find a different way to express yourself. The existence of these different types of situations should make it clear that saying "I'm sorry" should hardly be used as a universal response when matters are not as one might wish them to be. Yet many people use the phrase as if it were a universal solvent, just like I was saying, the appropriate response, no matter what the cause occurrence. I would be remiss, though, if I did not bring out the antithesis to this issue, that of not ever saying "I'm sorry" or even apologizing for anything. I once knew a woman who taught her young boy to never say the word "sorry" for any reason. I couldn't respond to her. She's talking to her son. It's her son, and this is the way she taught him. I knew this person very well. We were very close, but this is just something that I couldn't respond to. She told him that he would be portrayed as weak and people would take advantage of him his whole life. This requires a response such as, "I am very disheartened by this," and definitely not, "I'm sorry for you." I've known many people in my life who would not say the word "sorry" or apologize. I try to take notice and learn from who they are and how this has affected their lives. And then there's the ones who require an apology, usually in for being sorry for an offense they've incurred, supposedly at your hands. For instance, and this actually is the example that many months ago when we were doing this series on offense, and Sandy had asked me to do another one, another segment. This is the first thing that came to my mind and actually sparked this whole research and notes that I've done on this. Is that there was a time that we had met this couple, and they were a super couple. We loved them. But as we got to know them we would find that the wife of this couple, husband and wife couple, was becoming somewhat manipulative and really thought that she could control situations. And so as we learn this, we stand back and learn this. And one time at a Torah study that we were having, I expressed, because as you know, I'm very verbal about a lot of things, and I expressed how I felt. She stopped me when we took a break and, was confronting me over whether or not I should have said it the way that I said it. And I said, well, I'm sure that's the way you feel. So, that's the way you feel. And I walked away from her. Well, a little bit later, she confronted me again, and I confronted her back and just said, I'm not going to apologize for this, and you should back off. And I actually did it quite loud, and it embarrassed her. It offended her in front of our whole group. And I just told her, you need to back off. And she pushed me out of the way, and I left. I didn't want to get into the confrontation, so I left the whole group as it was. Well, they called us over to their house, and they demanded that I apologize for what I did, and I wouldn't do it. I literally would not say I'm sorry, and I would not apologize for what I did. The confrontation was hers. And that's what I'm saying. There are people at times that are going to be offended by things that they're going to be offended by. It doesn't mean that it's your fault, and you do not have to be sorry for that. You can pray for this person, do whatever you need to do for it. But remember, you absolutely do not have to apologize for something that you are not at fault with. This is my opinion. If you're offended by that, then be offended by it. I'm actually not going to say I'm sorry for that. Okay. Also, my research showed that some women's tendency to utilize "I'm sorry" so pervasively is often due to their having internalized the common gender stereotype that women should be kind, caring, and concerned about other people. Hence, saying "I'm sorry" is a way for those women to present themselves as quintessential feminine. And I have to say that this is my opinion, in that in the same way this woman was pushing me to say, "I'm sorry," my wife and I both talked later, it was a way of her equalizing who we were as a man and woman. And, I'm sorry. It's a stereotype that there you go. I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it is a stereotype is the way I should word this, because I don't believe that women and men are that much different when it comes down to. The problem is men, on the other hand, typically resist saying I'm sorry, and they don't even want to apologize for things. So there is a difference between men and women in a lot of different ways of even being offended. A lot of men will be offended and not address the issue. A lot of women will be offended and address the issue. So, the confrontation there is a back and forth. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is any difference between the two. And yet there is a lot of difference between the two. I'm sure Sandy and Sherry would have a lot to respond to all of that. My final words is apologize to the right person. Placing your regret on public display makes you appear vulnerable, weak, and lacking in confidence. A mistake is not a crime, and shame is not an appropriate emotional response. Context is always important. Consider the position, gender, and personality of the person to whom you are apologizing. Just because the situation is difficult, don't put off the apology or give it an excessive, over subservient way or in an offhand or half-hearted manner. An appropriate apology is always welcome when it is called for, but use "I'm sorry" as an expression of concern and sympathy when no fault is involved. And when you intend to use the term as an apology, only turn to it when you are the one who needs to make amends. I'm sorry if this teaching has offended you, because maybe you should look into why you are offended by this teaching or being offended by anything. It was meant to give you awareness of our words and expressions. Don't let others influence you. Be yourself. There you go.
That was good, Mark. And you're right. As a pastor, I found that we have to say, "I'm sorry," or people want that from us all the time. And whether we've done anything or haven't done anything, and it's normally the latter, but that they want that. I'm telling you, and that goes back to our previous shows, offense, at least from a congregational setting, is people are they have it sitting on their shoulder ready to bloom. But I remember telling Jonathan, Jonathan is, and you're right when you said gender roles. Men, in my experience, men do have issues with saying "I'm sorry" or apologizing, even when they're flat out wrong. But I've raised Jonathan in a different way, and I may be incorrect, but I've always gone by the philosophy: be the first to apologize or say "I'm sorry," and the first to forgive. And it will deflate issues that might arise. And that young man, he is always, when he messes up, boom, he's right there. It may take 5 minutes, but it won't take much more than that. And that's one of the beautiful things about him that others have even noted. He is just so good at that. And it honestly, it is made, I think, from the world's perspective, maybe it would make him look weak, but in actuality, for the people that are around him, it's helped him. Now, maybe that's incorrect, because maybe there's times he shouldn't do that, or we shouldn't do that. And so I'm not, so I don't know. Honestly, I honestly don't know, because I'm one of those people that always says those words.
Yeah.
Sometimes for comfort. Everything that you said, that was me. That is me. I use those words constantly, especially as a pastor when I'm dealing with people. And now I might say, "I'm sorry that you heard it that way," but that's not what was said. And
but remember, there are synonymous words. There are words that you don't have to use. Sorry. You can learn the synonymous words that communicate how the right way to say those things, rather than using the word sorry.
And you know what they say? They go, "You weren't truly sorry because you're trying to find other words."
As my advice to you, Sandy, because
I agree.
we know each other, and my advice to you as a pastor is to not worry about the offense and somebody leaving. Every person that leaves because of an offense, the Lord will bring 3 in their place.
It's a good teaching, and it preaches to me. I'm like I said, I'm one of those, so I'm thinking about it, because I do, and I'll use apologize, and I do use synonymous words at times too. But I've always found the most effective controlling, not controlling is the wrong word, for deflating the feelings and the emotions of the situation are those words. But I'm going to try more.
Good.
Because, I use it. So
That's the
guilty.
reason. That's the reason for this teaching, is to make you, like the teaching I did at Zachor. I taught on why we believe what we believe. It's totally to get you to think about your situation and analyze who you are and what you're doing, and let's do it better. Not that we're doing anything wrong, but we can all do better. So, very good. Thanks. I appreciate your input on that big time. Sherry, what do you think? You're muted.
Sorry.
So
No.
if you're going to yell at me, then maybe you should go ahead and mute. Go ahead. No.
Oh, I'm not going to yell at you. I think you are right in making the point that sorry is kind of a catch-all word, and it can have very different meanings in different situations, and what's the word? Are you sorry? Does that mean you're repenting for what you did and you're trying to make amends? Or are you grieved over something, sad? Are you sad that happened? What are some of the other words? Do you regret doing that, or whatever it was? Or do you regret that happened? So it can have a lot of different meanings, but we use it kind of as a catch-all word depending on the situation, and so that's a good point, because instead of using a catch-all word, use more of a pointed synonym that really pinpoints what you're meaning. Like, well, I really regret that you, or, whatever, I'm sad that you heard it that way, or I regret that you heard it that way. That was not my intention, or, whatever,
Well, that's that for instance, like what's happened to you lately, saying I'm sorry, I know what you're going through, that type of thing. I would never say that, but I'm saddened by your situation, and it's disheartening to me, and I'm praying over you and your family. That type of thing is a much better response than saying I'm so sorry for you, because that word sorry doesn't really mean that in that situation.
Yeah. And I mean, we had that, but I knew, what people
Sure, of
meant.
course.
They were regretful. They were, very sympathetic towards us and about the situation. And so, it is what it is what I tell them. It is what it is, but God is faithful.
Amen.
So, but that is, I had never thought about it in those terms, Mark. I'm glad you made that point, that it can be a catch-all phrase, so we can hone in more, um, on what we're really trying to say. And I think about it, and I'm bad about, saying, well, I'm really sorry, da 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 da, or I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, and I mean, well, I wasn't trying to give offense. So, so we need to expand our horizons, I guess you'd say.
Amen.
We need to expand how we use that word, because it can be offensive. I've seen people say, well, I'm sorry. Are you really? It's like, whoa, I'm going over here while they figure that one out. I'll be over here. So,
very true. Very good. Very good. You're muted, Sam.
Great topic. Of course, like you said before, this topic could go for a while, but I love what you said today. It was really, really, as it always is, it was really good, and it speaks a lot. Is there anything you want to wrap it up with?
No, simply that, as with everything, we need to we need to take a look at what we're living in our lives, what we're saying, especially communication. We really need to watch our words. We need to watch our expressions. We need to not be influenced by the world around us and allow the world to express to us what we should be saying or doing. We should be ourselves. We should analyze ourselves. We should, once again, understand why we believe the things that we believe. Why are we saying the things that we say, and not just be flippant about anything. Life is serious. It doesn't last long, especially me looking at it at 66 years old. I'm saying, man, I've done a lot of things that I regret. I really do. I regret a lot of the things I've done in my life that I wish that I wouldn't have been so flippant on. And a lot of those are my words in conversation. And I don't ever mean to offend anyone, even though I come from a family that was highly offensive. They were very arrogant and just didn't care who they offended. That's the way I grew up. That's the way I've lived my life. And I have a brother who could care less if he offends you. He's going to say whatever he wants to say, and that's my life. And I don't want to be that way. That's not the way the Lord wants me. That's not the way the Lord wants you. So my bottom line is, please analyze how you're communicating with people and how you're living your life, and look over it and figure out what's right and do that. Do the word of God. Don't just do what the world influences you to do and say.
That's good. That's good.
Well, in line with what you're saying, Mark, the word says, Yeshua tells us that we're going to be judged for every word we speak.
That's right. That's fact.
And I prayed, oh Lord, please erase some of them words. So because they a lot of people don't realize this, but our words produce either good or bad. How we speak, what we say, and they're very powerful. The universe was spoke into existence by one verse. Spoken.
That's right.
So
that's
we
right.
have a lot of power in our mouths.
That's exactly right.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Even Pharaoh, when he calls Moses back, when the servants petition him and say, how long are you going to let this man be a snare for us? So it's okay. Pharaoh recalls him back, but he's still negotiating. Well, who's going out? Everybody. We're not leaving some people behind, because that means we're coming back. And in case you haven't noticed, Pharaoh, we're not coming back. We're giving our notice. We're leaving. You can go rent this place out to someone else. We're gone. Go hire someone else. And Pharaoh then refuses. He's still negotiating. He still figures, and this is sometimes what people with hard hearts do with God. I mean, isn't that what Jacob did? And he's wandering around, well, God, if you provide all my needs and you bring me back and blah, 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 then you'll be my God, and then I'll give you 10%. We covered this in that chapter a number of weeks ago. That's not the way God works. You don't negotiate with God. When God says, let my people go, you say, yes, sir. If God says, move over here, you don't say, well, if you do this and you do that and you provide me with a good job and I want a good church and everything else. Abraham walked by faith. God says, leave the country of your fathers. That's all God told him. And Abraham said, okay, where am I going? I'll tell you. Just start walking and you'll figure it out along the way.
Thank you for your generous donations to Messianic Lamb Radio. You will be blessed as promised in Proverbs 22:9. These donations enable listeners from around the world to hear words of hope in teachings and in songs. Todah Rabbah.